Been working with a client now for about 5 years, and we're always trying to identify properties that other people have overlooked, things that are unique, but other people don't quite have the vision of what they're looking for or what they think they're looking for. I hope that makes sense. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you a property that I've located, identified here in Central Texas, and I'm going to talk through the price and what the property is and everything else, but I'm also going to show you some of the things that we're looking for when we're looking for unique properties. So I'm going to get this thing turned around. You know, if you want a pencil and paper, it might be a good idea. Grab a cold drink. I'm going to give you a tour of this property and just tell you what I'm seeing as somebody who looks at property a lot, who has developed property, who's built custom homes. I'm going to tell you what I'm seeing here and why I think this is a good investment opportunity. As we're walking through, if you see this little girl running around, that's my best girl, Charlie. She loves to look at land with me. But where I am standing right now is a little bit east of Austin. It's got great proximity to downtown Austin, and also a lot of other shopping areas are within about 10 minutes. So this property is 44 acres. It has really, really good access, actually, but if you're not familiar with the area that you're looking in, you would probably overlook this property. As I walk through here, a couple of things that are standing out to me is the elevation change all around the property and the trees. So I mentioned it's 44 acres, and they're listed at over $7 million right now, at about $260,000 per. One of the other interesting things is that the owner here has already filed subdivision plat and has the subdivision roughly done. And out here, you want to stay around 1.5 acres to 2 acres, and this is going to be a rural subdivision. These houses are more than likely either going to have well, or they're going to have rainwater collection, or a combination of both. There is the opportunity on this subdivision to bring in city water as another option for that. But these are going to be nice properties on a couple of acres within about 20 minutes to downtown Austin, and they're all going to be on septic. And there's just going to be room between the neighbors here. Like I said, there's 28 lots that have already been, we'll call it pre-planned. Doesn't mean that you're locked into that. It could be better, could be smaller. But let's take a walk around. You can see it was an old ranch. There's an old ranch road here, so it's accessible, even though a lot of it is very, very dense and thick. You've got a lot of native trees. Obviously you should. You know, these are junipers, which we call cedars here locally. And one thing when you're looking at a property like this, try not to get too tied up. You know, you can see a lot of these limbs are broken, and we've got limbs on the ground here, but we had a major freeze a couple of years ago, and most people that are selling land like this, either they're investors that have held on to it, or they might be kind of people that have owned it for generations and generations, and they just really can't get out and maintain a property anymore. But the vast majority of the trees that are broken and that are down are those cedar trees. So as development happens on this, more and more of those trees are going to be cut out and ground out anyway. So, you know, don't let the fact that it, you know, may be ugly deter you from looking at a property when you're looking at it. Look beyond what you can see right in front of you, because like I can tell you right here, the vast majority of this is cedar, but as I'm looking back here, I'm seeing really nice oak trees, and they're in these groves. And so what you have to do when you're looking at this is imagine, okay, let's get rid of these cedar trees and let's look how many of these oak trees are in here. And I'll walk back in here as a little bit of a hide and seek for you. So oak tree about 8 inches, 2 of them about 6 inches, about 6 inches on these oak trees. But as you get back in here going down this hill, that oak tree right up in here, that's about a 12 to 14 inch oak. That is a massive oak tree, especially for this area. And then as we get back in here, again, hide and seek if I don't trip over this stuff, where you don't see oaks, kind of like this large area right here, which is all cedar trees. Okay, that's where houses go. So if you can imagine finding these little pockets of oak trees in here, and then you don't want to see solid oak trees because, well, I don't, because I don't want to cut down oak trees when I develop a piece of property. But if I see pockets of oak trees around a big open area of cedar trees like this, all right, that's when I get excited, because now I know I've got pockets to drop houses in and to make them really unique and leave those oak trees, which are the more desirable trees that we have here, leave those oak trees in between properties, in backyards and in front yards, and create really, really beautiful settings that don't just have no trees. You see so many developers now, especially on small lots, where they come in and they just wipe every damn tree off of it, and then they go back and they put in 2 crappy trees in the front yard later and call it a subdivision. If it's me, and if it's somebody that I'm counseling on how to build a lot, that's definitely not something I want to do. I want to use what's here naturally by nature, build around it as much as I can. I mean, obviously you're going to have to take out some trees, but I would rather limit that to trees like the cedar trees and try to work around the oak trees as much as I can. Now, I mentioned they're over $7 million on the asking price for this, about 28 lots. So on a per lot basis, it's about $260,000. Now, can you get that price down to $230,000, $235,000 per lot? Yeah, probably. And that's kind of the interesting thing about this. A lot of people hear $230,000 per lot. Yep. And then you've got infrastructure costs, and that's gonna, that's gonna be expensive. You got to bring in electricity. You got to build roads. What are you going to do with water? I would do either on-site wells, or I would do rainwater collection in this area like I have at my home. But you have to start calculating those costs in, but as long as you can keep your total cost somewhere on this lot, because I understand this market a lot better than a lot of people do. If you can keep your total in about $400,000 to $450,000 per lot, you can make a lot of money here. There's a massive hole in this market for new built homes in, we'll call it like $1.5 million to $2 million range. Not anything I personally would buy, but Austin being what it is, there's a lot of people who would love to be this close to downtown Austin on 2 acres and be able to afford, $1.5 million to $2 million. They would want swimming pools, they would want the privacy from their neighbors and stuff like that, but we don't really have that in this school district where I am right now. So when I look at this piece of property, this 44 acres, there's a lot of opportunity here. And I don't know if you can tell on the camera as I'm walking around, but like I mentioned earlier, there is a lot of elevation here. We're going uphill here, and it's not elevation like the mountains, right? But there's a 10-foot rise in front of me. I just came up from that way, and at the bottom of that hill, it's probably 20 or 30 feet below where I am. And those are the things that you can use when you're designing a subdivision to create separation, to create interest between houses. Now, the only thing that this place is missing for me is I don't believe that there's going to be anything that has massive views, which would be an additional benefit when you're trying to sell something. So that's the only thing that I'm missing here on this lot, are some big views. But overall, this lot, it has a lot of interest and could make a lot of money. If you're in $450,000 per lot, and let's say your builds are $1 million builds, and you can sell them for $2 million, okay, there's about $550,000 on each lot potentially that you can make. Obviously, you've got holding costs and you've got sales costs and stuff like that. But again, gross, okay, maybe $500,000 per lot that you could earn on this piece of property. The other thing I always like to talk about is just buying a piece of land to sit. ROI in this area is usually about 4 to 5% on land per year. So that's not bad just to park your money. That's basically like a bond, but now you have an asset instead. But this actual 44 acres in 5 years' time has doubled in value. Now, it hasn't sold yet, so you don't know that it necessarily has doubled, but it'll be pretty dang close, and that's not a bad investment for 4 or 5 years when this thing sells. And it is going to sell. We've got a market right now that's a little bit slower, but a builder or a developer that's got a little cash that they're looking to stockpile, I personally think now's the time to make land investments so that by the time you start building, the market has come back from where it is right now. Now, as we're moving, you can get a good idea for what this land looks like if it's cleared off. Right here, what they did, they came in, and you can see this mulch here. They came in with the hydro mulch and just kind of whacked out some areas so you could actually see what's here. I personally hate those hydro mulches, and I did it on my own property before I knew. But the downside is there's stumps all under this, and any of the bigger stumps, if you've got to put in a foundation somewhere or a driveway, it's going to take you hours to get those stumps out of there with an excavator. So if you're ever developing land wherever you are, don't just shred it down with a hydro mulch. Get in there there and get somebody to pull the stumps immediately, because it's just so much cheaper to do it up front. Oh, there goes my girl. She's on a rabbit trail, I think. So really nice. And again, when you get the trees off, or when you get to a point where you remove the cedar trees and you leave oak trees, this area's got big, big native grasses. I mean, some of these grasses back here are close to 5 foot tall. So you've got big native grasses in here. And so you can imagine when you cleared this out and you had one house per 1.5 to 2 acres, you could have a manicured area around the house, but also you could have really, really nice natural native areas. And when you keep them like that, you get all the wildlife. You get the deer, you get the roadrunners that we see all the time, all the songbirds. You also get, raccoons and fox and skunks. We have skunks. But anyway, it's skunks are okay when you see them off the back porch and they're moving away from you. Not a big deal. You just got to keep your dogs away from them. But as we continue to walk through here, like I mentioned, this piece of property has 2 entrances, which is huge. One of the entrances is closer to where you would go for your shopping and your food and things like that. And the other entrance is closer to downtown Austin. And the entrance that's closer to downtown Austin, the reason that's so important is because if everybody had to go out the other entrance, that would be about another 10 to 15 minutes in that commute to downtown Austin. But because this neighborhood goes through, like I said, you can be in downtown Austin in about 20 minutes as opposed to 30 or 35. So this lot has a real strategic advantage, having the ability to have 2 entrances and 2 exits. Like I said, that's kind of the things that I'm looking at when I'm trying to figure out if this property is a good fit for clients. In addition to the elevation here, there are, and this is, it's pretty typical of this area, where you have elevation changes, there's going to be flatter areas like this that are going to be kind of just custom made for, okay, this is where you're going to put your house. Because if you have elevation for the sake of elevation, you might have massive views, but you may lose a lot of land for building just because you're not going to build on the side of a cliff, or it would be prohibitively expensive to do so. So being able to have flat areas that make sense and that aren't going to cost a ton to put slabs in and things like that, real key advantage here. So you're going to have staggering between the heights of the houses, and looking down into this meadow down here, there's about an 8-foot difference from where I am just down to that first level there. So that's going to create privacy between houses. When you're looking out windows, you're not going to be looking into the windows of your neighbors. Even if they are 50 feet away, there's going to be that separation between them. So that's a real key thing. The other thing I'm looking through as I'm here, and I know this because I'm a realtor and I work this area quite a bit, but the other thing is there's quite a bit of rock here, and I know that the foundations in this area are not going to shift and heave very much. So I know that it's going to cost a little bit more money for excavation for that foundation, but once that thing is in, I know that those houses are going to maintain their value because you're not going to have failed foundations like you do in other parts of Central Texas. So having that local knowledge when you're looking at land, and it doesn't matter if you're looking at land in Texas or Alabama or Colorado or Wyoming, having local knowledge in that area, especially if you're not 100% sure of what's going on, is absolutely invaluable. I always say it, I've got, in Colorado, I've got 3 realtors that are looking for different things in different parts of Colorado for me. And I have 3, Colorado is big, but it doesn't seem that big. But I have 3 because they're all very unique areas that I'm looking in. And having those agents that have that local expertise is absolutely key. The agents all know that I'm working with different agents in different areas. And they're okay with that because a real good realtor is going to understand that they have a knowledge in a certain area. Like for me, I would sell in the Austin area, but I wouldn't sell anything in Dallas or Houston or San Antonio because I don't know that area like I know this. So it's just that local expertise. And if you're looking in a location that you're not really sure about, give me a call, because chances are I know, because of the contacts that I've made in real estate over the years, I know people in every state, and I likely know either a realtor or a contractor or a lender wherever you're trying to find your property. So if you need that recommendation or if you need somebody locally to contact, let me know that, that team that you can put together in the local area around what you're looking to do, that team is absolutely invaluable. It's the first thing that you need to put together.